Hey guys. So I am going to quickly show you a pretty exciting option that we're going to have for our infographics here, and something that a few of you have started to want to do or try to do, and we may have figured out some roundabout ways of accomplishing it. But what we're going to be looking at today is how to cut out pieces of really anything, but particularly photographs, for use in our designs. So right here, I have a rectangle with just a simple two-color gradient in there, nothing terribly complicated. And what I'm going to show you to do is how to cut out pieces of anything. You can do it with shapes like this, or you can do it with photographs like we'll see in a minute here. And it's really as simple as drawing anything. So you just need to make a complete shape. Okay, so you can do that with the basic shape tool, the pencil, the blob brush, whatever. I'm going to use the pen. Okay, and I'm just going to make some kind of random shape here inside of this gradient that I've made very quickly. And once I have it made, so I have two separate objects here, right? The rectangle and this random little drawing that I just made. And in order to do what we're going to do, I'm going to use this drawing basically almost like a cookie cutter. If you've ever made cookies, you use those cookie cutters to cut out pieces of the dough. It's going to be very similar to that, where I will now select both. Okay, so I have the rectangle and the drawing selected. Okay, and then up here in the object menu, okay, you've used this in the past to rasterize a photograph or to expand a stroke into an object. At the bottom here, there's another menu called Clipping Mask. Okay, and under Clipping Mask, there's a couple of options. Probably the only one available to you initially will be Make, or as you can see in the hotkey here, Command 7. If you want the hotkey for that, it's Command 7. And I will click that, and you will see immediately that the gradient that I had snaps to the edges of this weird little shape that I'd drawn. Okay, so now, and it's not a white background like it might look like over here, it's actually totally transparent, so that I could drop that into somewhere else in my design and have those edges now be cut off. Okay, and you can see over here that it has made those two things into a group, and if I click the arrow right here to look even further into the group, inside I have what will now be referred to as the clipping path and the gradient underneath it. So I can actually still adjust that original gradient down there, and you can see when I kind of hover over it here, that preview line pops up from where the original outline of the gradient was, because it's still there. If I turn off the visibility of the clipping path here, that gradient pops back up there. Okay, so this is almost like a temporary, not even necessarily temporary, but an editable adjustment that you're making. So that if at any point I need to go back and adjust the colors of my gradients, or I want to get rid of this clipping mask, I can very easily continue to edit both. Okay, and what's especially kind of interesting about this is that even if you've used the clipping mask to make this cropping adjustment, you can actually go back and edit specific anchor points using our direct selection tool. So I'll click on an anchor here, and I can pull this out, and you see that because the gradient is still there, even when I move this anchor point afterwards, it still continues to fill in with the shape that it's edited with. Okay, you can see if I go all the way out here, because that is where the edge of the gradient was, that is where the color stops. Okay, so that's kind of nice that you can continue to adjust these outlines after you've used them. Okay, so that's just one quick example. Let's look at something a little bit different. So I've got this delightful photo of a rooster here, and I'm going to use this just as an example, as if you had found a photograph that you wanted to include in your design, and I have made a quick tracing of the rooster. Okay, so all I have here is just a drawing outline of that rooster, just traced around it, just like you have done many times before. Okay, but I haven't traced out the individual parts of it because I'm not remaking this into an illustration. I actually just want to cut it out. So you're almost drawing as if you were cutting around it with scissors. Okay, so I'll put that back where it was, and just like with the gradient and the drawing earlier, I will select both, go up to Object, Clipping Mask, Make, or Command 7, and boom. It will cut out the remainder of the photograph that I did not have selected around and cuts it down to the edge of this chicken head that I can now, I don't know, if I was making an infographic on, I don't know, animal cruelty or something like that, I could easily pop in this photo here, like onto a background, and include some other information, for example, right? However, the reason I pointed out that bit about the anchor points earlier, especially with these photographs, is that you can see in here, if I zoom in, that there are little areas where maybe, for example, I did not quite want some of this green background to show up, where if you initially draw an outline that you like, and I got pretty close here, right, but there are definitely some areas still where I could clean it up a bit, where I can come in, use my direct selection tool, select an anchor, and then bring that crop even further in to make sure that all of my background noise is being cut out still. Or conversely, I could pull out part of it and make sure I want to include more of it for some reason, right? So even though I've drawn it once, doesn't mean that that has to be the way that it is once I've used that clipping mask effect. Okay? So that's the clipping mask. Again, it's going to let you crop out certain parts of any visual. For our purposes, it will probably be photographs. But that's just two objects. Select them both. Object, clipping mask, boom. All right, have fun.